City Council meeting, or City Council chambers at 111 East Maple. The first item on the agenda is a resolution directing the city manager to verify business licenses in compliance with proposed economic development incentive districts. So with that being said, Mr. City Manager, would you like to give us an overview, or how would you like to proceed?
If it would be okay with you, Mayor, I think out of deference I would defer to Councilmember Stewart as he is the sponsor of this item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. So this is pretty simple. Over recent memory, we've had some of these special proposed economic development districts that there's been questions about whether or not all the businesses were licensed in there. And it turns out I think there were some that weren't. So I just had the city manager come up with this resolution that would require them to be checked before they would proceed to council. And that's all it is.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Question for the city manager.
Please.
What would be the process of if staff was to do this, what would be the process and what would be the impact on staff?
We've talked through a few different implementation ideas, and my recommendation would be that we put the onus on this on whoever is bringing forward the recommendation or the approving the economic incentive package that's on the table. So, for example, if I am a developer and I am seeking a community improvement district designation from the city for my strip mall, and I come before you, I would need to validate and verify, probably even provide signatory authority that I have checked the business license compliance status for all of the businesses that are currently in my area. A good example, parallel of that would be for somebody that's coming forward for a rezoning application before the Planning Commission, and where they have to notify property owners within a certain radius if certain conditions are being met. That applicant has to provide assurances that they have notified all of the property owners within that defined radius and boundary. So I think we've got precedent for doing that. And again, staff could certainly work with the applicant like we do on that notification for rezoning applications. But I think it's, as they're the ones that are seeking it and they're the ones that are going to benefit from it, I think that's probably what would be easiest for implementation and provide the greatest assurances that it's happening.
So the applicant would be able to go on the city website and pull up that location and be able to verify that they were either licensed or not licensed.
I would say that's probably a good way in the vast majority. Of course, the website lags real time a little bit depending on if staff have had an opportunity to input and update if somebody's come in and renewed a business license. So it's not foolproof to look at the website always, but it gives you a pretty good sense and semblance of that current status. And I think it would be a really good resource for most of those occasions, but as I said, staff could probably help validate those other 10% to make certain those are current.
I guess, Councilmember Stewart, would that be satisfactory in your mind?
As long as all the businesses are licensed and, I'm sorry. Oh, as long as staff can, I mean, as long as there's something coming forward saying they're licensed, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Please proceed.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart, it is to be sure I understand, it's only at the beginning. So, for example, if you have a 23-year CID, there's not gate checks along the way to be sure that the licenses that are participating that come and go. This is just to be approved. The licenses have to be in order.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, in the beginning, before it comes to the city council.
Very good. Thank
I
you.
want some kind of assurance that the businesses are licensed.
Anyone else? Oh, please.
Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Mayor.
You bet.
Mr. City Manager or Councilman Stewart, I guess, when you say there's a problem, I know our staff tries to do as best as they can with working to make sure all the business licenses are compliant. In fact, I believe the city manager's last weekly update kind of gave us some information regarding that. I mean, what is the problem that you have seen that has
The,
been
the
so
one on,
drastic?
the recent one on Jackson Drive, not all the businesses were licensed.
Okay.
And there was one before that, but I don't recall what it was at this point.
Okay.
But I remember two in recent memory.
Mr. City Manager, have you seen an uptick in problems, if you will, that has warranted any major action?
Well, like as I mentioned, you've got that kind of rolling window. The website doesn't always capture real time. So, maybe we go on today and my business shows that it's not current on the business license, but I actually came in this morning and paid for it. There are other circumstances where, when you have as large of a city as we are and as many businesses we do, then it's not always possible for a staff of our size to catch every single one of those. It does rely somewhat on being a good civic citizen and complying with laws. But if this gives us another mechanism to validate and check it, then it's another tool in the toolbox.
Sure, fair enough. Well, we certainly want our businesses licensed properly. That is something that we do take serious and want to make sure that we do that into the future. And I've had to have some, stern conversations with some of my business owning constituents on why the city kind of gave them the write-up for not having that, and I've had to be stern with them myself that this is part of doing business within our city is this portion here for sure. Okay. I just didn't realize that we had a major problem with that. That couldn't be corrected.
Mr. Mayor,
Please proceed.
I'm not trying to say we have a major problem. I'm just trying to, I think if somebody comes forward with some kind of package like this and a CID or whatever, I think that we need to verify.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Further discussion? Seeing none, we
So
do.
then, just to
Please
be
proceed.
be
Yep,
clear,
you
so,
bet.
so then, on the resolution that was brought, with this agenda, we could, city manager could adapt that resolution to the language where the applicant is, required to verify that.
Yes, I would be fine with that.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
So for clarification, Mr. City Manager, you'll adopt an amendment to satisfy that? Is that how we will proceed? Right, but we still need the language to put that in there.
I would, let me seek just some general feedback from the council. We could modify with Councilmember Stewart's approval, since it's his legislation. We could add that language, or we could treat this as you're giving staff the directive to ensure this happens, and then we work administratively to ensure that it does occur. It's really a preference thing for the body. If you guys want that language in there to just be clear that the onus is on the applicant, we can certainly modify the language. It's really a personal preference thing for the body, Mr. Mayor.
What's your preference?
I think
Councilmember?
just, as long as, I'll go ahead and modify the language, and as long as there's a consensus, we can bring it forth with the modified language, I'm fine.
Okay. And so your modified language would be include this in the resolution, that this would be done this way by the applicant.
Yes.
Is everyone good with that? Just as a consensus? Very good. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Any more further discussion on item number one? We do have a citizen's request. Becky Hake would like to speak on the resolution. Becky, please proceed.
I find this. My printer ran out of ink mid-stride, so it's on my phone tonight. So, Becky Haig, 105-160 East 26. First, I want to thank Councilman Stewart for bringing this forward. I think it's kind of sad we have to, that we have had the problems with the, sorry. I think it's kind of sad that we had to bring this forward, because the last three new ones that we brought up have all had problems with licensing. The main thing, and I'm changing everything I was going to say tonight after this discussion, the main thing we're forgetting when we're talking about licenses, commercial landlords have to be licensed too. And they are not. 50 to 70% of them are not. I took one block of Nolan Road, in the middle of Nolan Road, one block Sunday afternoon. There was 19 businesses and or properties. So you have businesses versus landlords together. 10 of them are not licensed. And that includes 4 businesses. And the landlords aren't licensed either. And that was through the website, the city website, and just looking on Viewer Parcel and who owns them. So the landlords are the big problem. You want to talk about the last one out there at the Pavilions at Hartman? That owner's never licensed. So the owners are the big problems. I'm not saying we don't have businesses that aren't, because obviously there was 4 of the businesses in that block of Nolan Road that don't have a current license according to the website today. So this is a big issue, and it's one that I brought up with the different SIDs. And what makes it really easy to check is if you go through your packets when the SIDs come out, or when they're annexed in extra, because they did it on the Nolan Road one. In that packet is every property owner, not business, because the businesses don't get to vote on the SID, but every property owner is listed, because they have to send in mailers. And just like if you're doing a variance, you have to prove who you sent your mail out to. They're proving who they sent their mail out to. So their business owners are right there. The property owners are right there. That whole process to do that entire block took me maybe 15 minutes. And I just figured minimum license fee, landlord or business is $75. That's if you make $25,000 or less. So even if you figured $100 for license fee, which any business on Nolan Road that's paying rent's making more than $25 or, $25,000 or $30,000 a year. That's $1,000 in one block every year that we don't get licenses spending for. And $100 for a license is conservative. And that was 15 minutes of work. So we're missing out on a lot. And what we're doing is we do have some commercial landlords that are licensed and businesses that keep their Sperry current. We're punishing them. Because let me tell you, if it's expired and we don't get any, and they never renew it and they find out they can keep running their business, they're getting away with it. And I can't believe we don't have a computer system that just kicks out a feed every month that says this is the list of licenses that are due this month, or even sends them an email, whatever. And I can't believe it would take that much staff time to do it. But anyway, that's kind of my change of plans tonight on my talk. But yes, I do think this is a problem. And if we're going to give them a 1% of our sales tax money, I think they need to pay their licenses. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Mr. City Manager, if a business is operating in the city, and let's say they go 2 years and haven't, do they have to catch up on their past license fees, or do they just pay once and have an active license?
No, we have to bring them into compliance. So any funds that they are in arrears have to be satisfied before they'll be issued that business license.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So let's,
Please proceed.
Mr. City Manager, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this conversation, and I am supportive of Councilman Sturt's amendment here. The conversations seem to be 2 different things. One, continual compliance with business licenses, which is something that we need to work on, which is separate than what the legislation here is discussing. And 2, the money that is given in a community improvement district is paid for by the residents or the constituencies or out-of-town people who come and shop or eat or do business in that particular district. So that money that is given is not given to any particular random person. It is a board of directors that sets policies and expenditures, correct?
Yeah, so let me just give quick 3 responses to those things. One, historically, we've not, as staff, provided recommendations on council-sponsored items because they're council-sponsored items, but Councilmember Stewart and I have had a lot of good conversation about this. And if we were to provide a staff recommendation, would recommend approval because of what Councilmember Stewart has said, that somebody coming forward for this level of economic incentive and assistance, it makes sense to be sure you're compliant with the laws of the city. A community improvement district is governed by a board of directors. It is approved by the businesses within that district, so they vote. The majority of them decide they want to establish the community improvement district. And then shoppers who are allowed to shop wherever they want in the city are the ones that then pay that tax or don't if they choose to shop elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a good, fair assessment there. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no further discussion, Mr. City Manager, can you cue us up for the Parks Master Plan, please?
That would be great, Mayor. Thank you. So as the council knows, it's been quite some time since the city's Parks and Recreation Master Plan was last revised and reviewed, about 15 years to be exact. So we have been working on that over the course of the last several months. And wanted to just do a check-in with City Council given the critical nature of this topic. So I'm going to ask our Director of Parks and Recreation, Morris Heide, to come formally kick off the conversation, but that's really the purpose of this tonight, is to do a check-in with the body and the community through you so that we can let you know where this important document stands.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to give you an update. As Mr. Walker stated, we've been working on this for several months. This is kind of the halfway point, a little over that in the process. And so wanted to provide an update on where we're at, kind of some of the initial ideas that are being discovered and talked about, and as we prepare to update that master plan. With that, I'm just going to introduce Leon Younger from Pros Consulting, and we'll get started on the update. So, Leon?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on where we are in our process. As Morris said, we're a little bit more than halfway through, but we have each of the consulting teams here to give you some highlights of what we're gonna of where we are in the process. There's no recommendations tonight. We're just giving you findings. So, in terms of what role each of the agencies play, you can see what Pros Consulting role is on the. And you can see PGAV's role in terms of historic facility management plan. ETC is handling the statistically valid survey, and Confluence is handling the site assessments and condition assessments that are associated with the plan. So our process really focuses on where we are today. So we've been spending a lot of time on site reviews, understanding the demographics, the benchmarking, and recreation program services, kind of where we're going tomorrow, and what people's expectations are of the park system. That includes focus groups and individual interviews, community service, survey, and then demographic and trends analysis. And so we're moving now into how do we get there, which really looks at prioritization, capital investment, financial planning, funding, and strategic action plans. So Travis from Pros Consulting is going to take you through 3 or 4 slides, and we'll have the other groups kind of share their information.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. So as Mr. Younger was explaining, what we're going to provide an overview with over the next several slides are kind of where you are today with the community and Parks and Recreation Services. And so one of the important components of that is looking at your community makeup. And so we've done a demographics analysis that shows these high points. As you can see on the screen, a slight increase in population over the next 8 years. You are an aging community, and this is something that we see across the board nationally. Most communities are aging in place now. That is a trend. And so that's something to be mindful of from a Parks and Recreation standpoint when you plan programs and facilities. They do need to be multi-generational in nature. As far as race goes, you are also a diversifying community. And so again, this plays into the type of programming interests that the community will likely have over the next several years. And then we also look at recreation trends. We use Esri, which is a data source. They pull consumer data on recreation pursuits in a community, and they develop what's called a market potential index. And so we put a disclaimer there. It's one data point, but it shows you kind of what your community's interested in with different recreation categories, from exercise, outdoor adventure, commercial recreation interests, and these are some of the activities: canoeing, kayaking, fishing. Independence scores pretty high on outdoor adventure type programming, but also e-gaming is something that we see coming up through the ranks in many communities, and Independence is no different in that regard. Oh, sorry about that. One of the other components of our scope was to look at recreation programming, and so this provides essentially a snapshot. A lot going on here on the screen, but I'll break it down for you. When we look at recreation programs, we try to look at them comprehensively, but also individually, to look at the entire portfolio and what the community is offering and how does that align with community need or priority. We break programs down into a classification to understand how they align with the mission and goals of the agency as they stand currently. But the program classification also helps develop how the programs are funded, what the cost recovery level needs to be. We take a look at core program areas. It's important to have these core program areas to focus on core business areas. Essentially, Parks and Recreation cannot sustainably be everything to everyone, and so having those core business areas to focus on is important, and that's what we are helping to develop with recreation programs. We look at ages served to identify any gaps within the community and where recreation programs are not offered for. In Independence case, you are offering programs for all ages. However, there's opportunities to grow, as we talked about earlier, for older adults, as well as the teen demographic. And then program life cycles, if you can imagine essentially a bell curve. When you start offering a program, it has a lot of new energy and new participation. But then eventually it plateaus and in some regards starts on the decline. And that could be for a variety of factors, whether that be other recreation providers that move into the community that start offering similar services, or the program kind of falls out of trend. And so we look at program life cycles to get an idea comprehensively of where programs fall. And we recommend that this program assessment is done at least on an annual basis. And so we like to say that we help the client set up a model to analyze programs, and then they can carry it forward on an annual basis. So we also did some benchmarking. And again, another disclaimer with benchmarking: not every community is alike. It's never apples to apples, but it provides a good barometer on where Independence stands locally, regionally, and nationally. And so we actually reached out to a few communities, Lee's Summit and Springfield, for kind of the local/regional benchmark. But we also use the National Recreation and Park Association's Park Metrics. It's a comprehensive system that allows for parks and rec agencies across the country to enter their data into. And then it compiles on a regional basis. In this case, we use the Midwest median average, metrics like what their operating budget is, what their staffing levels are, what types of recreation programs are agencies offering. And so what you see on the screen here are the comparisons of Independence to the National Recreation and Park Association Park Metrics. Again, we use the Midwest median. In these cases, with operating expenses and operating expenses per capita, Independence, you can see, falls below that median average. I will also note that with the operating expenses, that $8.15 million, that does include, from what we understand, the interfund charges, which are essentially the indirect charges that the Parks and Recreation Department has for other city operations that feed into Parks and Recreation services. So we understand that's approximately 10% of that, and so when you apply 10% to 8.1 million, you get a more realistic view of what funds are actually going into the Parks and Recreation system. So it's even less than this 8.1 million that's directly going back into the Parks and Recreation system. We also looked at revenue. So we compared other agencies and how they're collecting revenue with cost recovery practices, but also looked at revenue per capita. You can see there's a drastic difference from the NRPA median and what Independence is currently bringing in. And then we looked at capital spending as well as full-time equivalents to compare staffing levels. As far as the capital spending is concerned, NRPA takes an average of 5 years, and so that 2.6 plus million that you see on the screen is an annual average across 5 years. Our benchmark analysis that involved Lee Summit and Springfield asked for the last 3 years of capital spending, and then this 245,000 is the most recent amount in Independence current fiscal year. We also are taking a look at the level of service, and so essentially how that's defined is how park acreage, trails, and specific facilities are serving the community, where they're located and concentrated in the community, and how many there are per either resident or per 1,000 residents. And so you can see on the screen here some metrics with park acreage. Again, we used NRPA park metrics to kind of be that barometer to compare to. Currently, Independence for developed park acreage is at 6.41 acres per 1,000 people. This does fall below the national benchmark of 12.8 acres per 1,000 people in the Midwest region. We also identified that there are needs for neighborhood, community, and regional parkland based on community growth data. And so the level of service takes into account the current level of service based on your current population, but then the growth of the population over the next 5 years and what that level of service should be based on that population number. Trail mileage is currently above national benchmarks at 34.9. We also looked at sports and recreation facilities and a few areas. Rectangular fields, those are defined as multi-purpose, multi-sport fields. There is at least one field needed per the population growth forecast. Ball diamonds, your current level of service meets the future level of service needs, so there isn't a gap there. But there are some needs for future basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts based on population growth. And then, of course, outdoor aquatic facilities, which we understand has been a hot button topic over the last couple of years. Based on the current level of service and future growth, there is a need for aquatic facilities. And so, with that being said, we'll hand it off to Hank from Confluence to speak more about the level of service in their park assessment.
Thank you, Travis. One of our jobs as part of this process was to look at the overall level of service from mapping and distribution of properties throughout the community. And what you see here is a map, and each of those dots represents a park. The cyan colored are regional parks, which you can see serve the overall community at about a 10-mile radius. We have community level parks, which are the darker blue, which serve approximately a 1 mile to 2 mile radius there. And then neighborhood parks in the lighter blue are about a half-mile service radius. And then you have pocket parks in the magenta color, which serve about a 1/4 mile radius. And as you can see here with the distribution of parks, the vast majority of it is all on the western side of the city. So it leaves the eastern side of the city highly underserved by your parks and rec facilities. We just go to show that because, as Travis mentioned, there's an overall deficiency in overall parkland throughout your community as well. And as you develop further parkland, the ideal way to go about doing that would be to look at the areas where that deficiency occurs the most and trying to make it so that the neighborhood level parks and community level parks are scattered so that they're within like a 30-minute walk at a minimum as part of this process. We also went through and did a rating on each of your parks facilities. Here you can see we've chosen a few of them. Here, this is McCoy Park, and you can see the horseshoe pits and the basketball courts and the playground facilities, and also the tennis courts here. We, as part of this, went through and did a rating system for each of these as well, looking at plus being excellent condition, a 0 being a good condition, and then a negative meaning needs improvement. So ideally, an excellent condition would be brand new. Good condition is about what you would expect. It's still within its means. It doesn't need a lot of improvement, and there's usually a life cycle on your amenities within each of these parks facilities. One of those is like on playgrounds, you would expect a 10 or 15 to 20 year life cycle on a playground facility. So ideally, there would be enough capital available to the Parks Department for each of their facilities to go and replace those on that life cycle, and those would be planned into your CIP as part of this. So you can see here we've gone through on each of these facilities, started to look at what those items are. The grills were in great condition, the picnic shelters were in excellent conditions, picnic tables were in great condition. Some of the areas that needed a lot of improvement would be the splash pads that need some improvement as part of that process. We also looked at Rotary Park. You can see here the new playground as part of that, the splash pad, and then the shelter as part of that. Looking at this park overall, things were in fairly good shape, where the main areas of improvement that were necessary were mainly on the splash pad again, and also with the walking trails, making sure that those are ADA compliant, not a lot of cracks, that the surfacing is usable for most of the people trying to utilize those parks. And then Waterfall Park, you can see here the playground and some of the trails as part of this. Looking at the overall facilities, the main areas that needed attention were mainly on the fishing pier. Most of the other items were in good condition, and then obviously you've got a brand new playground there, which is in great condition. And then Santa Fe Trail Park as part of this. Looking at those facilities with the baseball fields and the playgrounds. Playground 2, adjacent to the tennis courts, needed a lot of improvement. The barbecue grills needed a lot of improvement. And really the restrooms needed a lot of improvement. And we saw that as kind of a consistent theme throughout, just with the homeless population and the damage that they do to a lot of your restroom facilities. That is a ongoing concern and maintenance area that the department needs to address on a regular basis. But they're doing a great job of maintaining what they can, particularly with the tennis courts and the pickleball or the picnic shelters, and a lot of the fields in this facility. With that, I'll pass it on to PGAV to identify the historic aspect.
Good evening. Mike Albin with PGAV Planners, here with my colleague Susie Bonwich. So we're involved with a component of this plan focusing on the 9 historic sites that are owned by the City of Independence. And so our goal within that component of the plan is to ensure the long-term sustainability of these 9 historic sites as community assets. And so I'm going to go over kind of a high-level, give a high-level look of what we've been doing so far, what we've learned, and where we anticipate going down the road. And so where we started is to look at understanding the operations of each of these 9 historic sites. And I've got a slide, the next one, that shows what all these are. But looking at the different costs that each site has, how they bring in money, who the visitors are, where they're coming from, and how their volunteer and staff are, what that situation is, and kind of the pipeline for bringing in new volunteers and staff in the future. Next, we assessed the facilities individually, kind of looking at their location and their infrastructure assets. Are they easy to get to? Could you walk there? Could you bike there? Could you take the Amtrak in and then connect that way? That sort of thing. Are they grouped together? Could they be bundled as different historic site packages? And then looking at their maintenance needs, what condition are they currently in? How much would that cost to get them up to a level of good repair and certain capital improvements? And then planning for the future. So developing a funding strategy and exploring ownership and management structures that would allow them to maintain a level of good repair in the future. So the deliverable then is a strategic management plan that stands alone and integrates into the greater Parks and Rec master plan. So these are the 9 sites. You may or may not already have a good idea of what they are and where they are, but I've included a map here. So on the right there is kind of a bigger map of Independence. The little red box inside of that then is your more zoomed in map on the left there. So the 9 sites together are the National Frontier Trails Museum, the Chicago Knowlton Train Depot, the Bingham Wagner Estate, the Missouri Model Railroad Museum, the 76 Fire Company Museum, or otherwise known as Old Fire Station Number 1, the 1827 Log Cabin Courthouse, the Pioneer Spring Cabin, the Vail Mansion, and then the Truman Depot. So here's, and I'm gonna go through all this information here, but I want to give you kind of some stats at a glance. So among many of the things that we've been looking at, included in this table here, visitation from 2024. And so we at PGAV have a software that will track where people's cell phones are, so we can see how many people are at a given site and stay there for a given period of time based on their own cell phone and the GPS that's within that. So among the 9 sites, the most visited is the National Frontier Trails Museum, followed by the Vail Mansion. And then column number 3 here, maintenance and repairs costs. So these are pretty rough estimates. We had been given some assessments from a number of years ago for a few of these sites, and then we did kind of an inflation increase to get a figure that you see there. In talking to these sites, their opinion is that these numbers are low. Bingham Wagner, for example, they're listed here as at 4.3 million. Talking with them, they estimate somewhere closer to 6 million might be more accurate, to give an example. And then kind of looking at strategic implications, one kind of thing that stood out here again in talking to each of these sites is that, and looking at it from a visitor perspective, is that they're underutilized. There's a lot of potential here, either through marketing or, I hate to use a buzzword, but synergy or what have you, to kind of create an environment where these great assets can bring in more visitors than they're already doing today. And so, kind of give you an overview of what we've been learning and who we've talked to. So we've looked at how different cities manage similar attractions, structures under a conservancy or a nonprofit, under the arm of a convention and visitors bureau, different funding strategies, different marketing campaigns. And here again, I'm not here to recommend anything right now. This is kind of an ongoing process that we're examining different strategies. And how to bundle the attractions as well. And so to give you an idea of who we've talked to, kind of thinking along the themes of communities that have had, that were the origin of a U.S. president. So we've talked to Springfield, Illinois, and their Convention and Visitors Bureau. That Abe Lincoln, of course, originated there. And so there's a lot of sites that relate to Abe Lincoln, but then also, similar here to Independence, others that are related to local history in itself. Little Rock and Bill Clinton. There's a few, the Bill Clinton Library and Museum is there, but then they also have related sites as well, related to civil rights movement and that sort of thing. Visit Independence, of course, and then we're out of St. Louis, so we've been in touch with a couple conservancies that are in St. Louis that have been very successful. So Forest Park Forever, if you're familiar with them. They manage Forest Park. And so each of the zoo, the art museum, the Missouri History Museum, et cetera, all owned by the city, but are managed under a conservancy there. So is that, it's a little bit of a different animal, but is that something that we can kind of take into Independence and form something that could apply here as well? Lafayette Park, if you've been to Lafayette Square, kind of south of Busch Stadium, historic area, they have two historic sites, similar, where the city owns it, but there's a conservancy that kind of manages it. And we are learning, of more and more people to talk to as we go through this. So a few more to come. Probably at the next update, we'll have even more people who we've talked to. So I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Real quick. Before Ryan comes up, just wanted to provide an overview of what all we've done community engagement-wise for the master plan. It's been a pretty robust process to this point. In addition to the statistically valid survey that Ryan will provide an overview for, we were here back in the spring to do focus groups with community partners, other recreation organizations, members of the school districts were involved in that as well. And we also, over the course of the winter and late winter into the spring, we did individual stakeholder interviews with elected and appointed officials and staff. We also have recently, through the Independence staff, they've handled the heavy lifting with that, have started to engage the teen demographic through a brief survey to understand how they're using the park, and if they're not using the park or participating in the programming, why not? And what would they like to see with future parks and recreation programs? And then we also have what we're calling the Social Pinpoint Project website that's live now. It has an online survey, so if individuals did not get the statistically valid survey, they do have an opportunity to go on there, still take a similar survey. It also has an interactive map to where they can pinpoint locations of the park system that they believe need to be a priority going forward. There's also a visioning board on there for additional community input as well. That website will advertise upcoming meetings, just as it is this one this evening, and the community will be able to follow along the master plan process as it progresses through the rest of its stages. And that leads us to the statistically valid survey that Mr. Ryan will present.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm going to try to quickly get through my slides. I'm the statistically valid survey guy. My name's Ryan Murray. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Research. I live down in Greenwood, Missouri, and our office is actually based in Olathe. So we're really familiar not only with the area, but with the region. We've been doing this for about 40 years. We're really known as the nation's leader in market research for government organizations, but really the most important part of this is to kind of frame up the purpose and then the methodology of what we did. So the purpose is really an objective assessment. We want to objectively send out a survey to a random sample of households across the city, and we want to understand how you feel, how you think, what your perceptions are, and most importantly, what are some of your needs or desires for the community. We're going to help you all really take a resident-driven approach to decision-making through that. As Travis was just talking about, this is kind of one puzzle piece in a really large engagement puzzle that you've got your consulting team putting together. And so the results to the survey really provide a great roadmap. They can really be descriptive. They can really point us in a solid direction, but they should always be kind of enveloped or put into that larger puzzle of all the engagement factors, which include your stakeholders and those folks most closest to these situations. And this is really a snapshot of the average Independence resident, how they think, see, and view the park system here. But the other part of this is the specific design of the survey is really important. we actually have developed a few analysis types to help our clients make decisions based on the data, not just trying to interpret themselves. And so we actually design a few things straight into the survey to make sure that we can eke out the same priorities that we give to other communities. For example, we do your community satisfaction survey fairly regularly. It's the same important satisfaction analysis that's used. We do Blue Springs survey, we do the county survey, we do Kansas City, Missouri survey, and we all use the same analysis. In addition to the important satisfaction analysis, I'll show you our priority investment ratings that'll kind of address the need and importance of some amenity and programming types. And we also use that analysis locally and nationwide. And so we're really proud of it. We think that it works effectively. But again, it's important to understand how we achieved those goals and how we received those surveys. So it's an objective survey tool. It's mailed out to a random sample of households. What we first do is we request the GIS shapefiles that show the entire city boundaries. From that, I purchase every single residential address that touches any of the zip codes that's within the city's boundaries. And from that, I exclude everything that doesn't match or doesn't find itself inside of the city. From there, we'll randomly select a number of households to be contacted for the survey. We'll first mail that out, and it'll include a postage-paid return reply envelope, a cover letter, and a copy of the survey instrument. We ask that respondents fill it out, give us a call, or go online to complete the survey. There's an entire verification process, but everything's harkened back to that home address. So even if you found yourself online and your friends had told you that there's a survey out and you have an opportunity to provide your input, if you weren't randomly selected, your survey does not find its way into these 802 completed surveys that we're presenting on this evening. If you completed the survey because a friend or family member shared it with you, you most likely fell into what we would call a non-random sample of responses, or choice participants. The clear difference here is that I hounded people in your community until they responded. So the users that I mailed the survey to, they responded really quickly. Some of your older, more fluent residents responded right away. But the folks that are the hardest to reach, the non-users, the folks that are young, the folks that are maybe worried about other potential issues in their lives, those are the folks that I have to continue to knock on the door until I get the response. That ensures that not only did we randomly select and not bias the data, but we also ensured that there's demographic representation with regards to age, race, ethnicity, gender, and income. So not only do the results randomly come from the community, but in total, all 802 surveys accurately mirror the demographics of independents. That is what ensures that the results are statistically significant, but as the researcher, I must inform you, there's a margin of error to that. I did everything 100% correct, but I did not talk to the 120,000+ people that live in Independence. And so for that reason, I always tell you 95 out of 100 times, I'll get these same exact survey results doing the same methodology in your city. The difference is that margin of error, 3.5% plus or minus. So if we had a 50-50 question in this survey, I went out and did it 100 more times, I'd see that 50-50 jump up between about 57 or 53% and 47%. It would hover in that area. 5 times out of 100, it would completely baffle me and it would baffle everybody else. It would be way outside of our margin of error. But we can say with pretty certain terms that these results should hold true. They should match the opinions and desires of the average Independence resident. So that's kind of the methodological way that we do this. 800 surveys may not seem like a lot for your community. Blue Springs, I do 400. Lee Summit, I do 600. The city of San Antonio is maybe 15 times your size. I do 1,000 surveys for the city of San Antonio. So their margin of error is about 3%. Yours is about 3.5. So essentially the same results without 200 extra surveys. So very reliable results across the entire city. And what I want to do kind of now is just tell you about what folks told us. So nuts and bolts are out of the way. 82% of your respondents indicated that they visited a park or facility in the last year. National average is about 81%, so you're just right there, right within the limits, right within our margin of error. We don't have benchmarks for the number of respondents visited a city-owned museum, but it's about 61% from the survey. And then 65% of respondents indicated that they'd participated in a program or attended an event offered by the city within the last year. That national average holds at about 36% or so that's significantly higher. I was out here a couple of weekends ago for your premier event. It was a great time. I assume that's where we see kind of higher levels, or folks are attending events. It's not as much probably active program participation, but more so probably special events. Besides you all being the primary source of parks and recreation for the city, for community members in the city, folks use Jackson County Parks and Rec as well as Blue Springs primarily for parks and trails. So if they're going outside the city, they're primarily going to go use a park or trail from another provider. As I mentioned, the important satisfaction analysis, I'm not going to go through all of the results here, but we'll hit some of the highlights. I've also got a full report that you're going to have access to, and I'm more than happy to make myself available again if needed to council. The key thing about important satisfaction analysis is that we're trying to highlight items towards the top that are below average in satisfaction, above average in emphasis. So we asked respondents to rate their satisfaction with all the items listed to the left. And then we asked respondents to force rank the items that they think need the most emphasis over the next few years. We call that our importance rank. We see availability of information being a top item, followed by maintenance, followed by safety. The good thing is that as you educate and you communicate more, you're likely to beat back some of the perceptions about security. And as you continue to plan strategically for your parks, you should begin to beat back some of the maintenance. And then you'll start a whole cycle of different items kind of becoming those high priorities. But hopefully this provides a general roadmap in order to kind of boost or at least have an impact on overall satisfaction. The more meat and potatoes type analysis that we do is really related to facilities and amenities, and then in my next slide it'll be programming. What we've asked respondents to do is indicate whether or not they've got a need in their household for any of the facilities listed, how well that need's being met, and which one of these items are most important to their household. Based on those ratings, we're able to kind of top down decide which of these items will give the city the biggest bang for their investment dollar. So if we're to invest in items on this list, as we climb towards the top of this list, we're going to have the greatest impact on the largest number of homes in the community. As we move towards the bottom of this list, we see esports, motorized boat launches, outdoor tennis courts. That means we're likely serving what need exists in the community well enough that it's not popping up as a high priority. So if we're offering diamond sports fields, extreme sports, outdoor basketball courts, we should not be removing those amenities from the community, but they're likely serving what need currently exists. When we get into the programming, we see special events towards the top. That's why I mentioned that earlier. I think your special events are a huge draw. They're pushing up those program participation or usage numbers in terms of special events. And towards the bottom, we only really see adult tennis lessons, and then it's youth pickleball lessons in leagues is kind of not needed or less needed programming types. Those might be unique programming types. But we've got a large level of items towards the top, dog park programs, water-based programs for seniors, all the way up to special events. And so again, we're looking at this as kind of regardless of age or ability, you'll typically see items towards the tops of these lists that most households would have some need for generally. This is where that puzzle piece conversations come back into play. Great roadmap, great guidance for the city staff, but you have a whole other list of engagement activities that will help you contextualize this data specifically. You've got Pros Consulting, who's leaned on us for years, and we've leaned on them for years, and they know how to use this data as well. So it's the perfect consulting partners between Confluence Pros and us in terms of how to analyze and how to use that data. A few extra findings here. Might get buried in the reporting. Almost everybody indicated that they believe it's important for the city to provide high-quality parks, recreation programs, and facilities. 92% out of our 100% of folks. 88% believe historic sites are important to the city, and these are just general questions that we were asking. 3/4 said they'd be willing to support a general obligation bond to support improvements to parks and recreation facilities, and most support is generally related to, in a follow-up question, indoor recreation or community center. They've really focused on aquatics, park playground improvements, and trail expansion connections as well. About 52% of respondents indicated they would want to see the city increase funding for parks and recreation and trails and open space in the future. 26% indicated to maintain existing levels there. So full report will be available. I'll be make myself available to council and staff as needed, and so I appreciate all your time this evening. Thank you so much.
So our next steps basically is develop the vision, mission, goals. We'll be creating a strategic action plan that really focuses on land, facilities, parks, staffing, operations, capital needs, as well as actions associated with partnerships and other funding sources. We'll be developing a draft report and briefings with all of you. We'll probably be doing that either in December or January, and then a complete report sometime in March. So we wanted just to share that's where we are in our process. Any questions?
Any questions, anyone? Any questions? Questions? Okay. Well, please proceed.
I'll do one. Thank you.
You bet.
So we're going to go back a few slides to maybe slide 9, then maybe to 11. So the topic of neighborhood parks. So is that something that is more of a need that you're seeing for Independence, or is it a national trend that's moving with neighborhood parks? I kind of thought that neighborhood parks parks, we're going to be maybe going to the wayside and sticking with more larger size capacity parks.
Well, neighborhood parks have a different purpose because they're built around a 1 hour experience or less. Most of them don't have parking and most of them don't have restrooms. So consequently, it's a go-to park if people want to have their kids go to a playground, hang out for an afternoon with friends, but it has a different purpose than a community park. A community park typically is 10 to 100 acres and has multiple different experiences within a park, and people are there for 3 to 4 hours versus 1 hour or less. And so the challenge is with any type of city like yourself is what is that balance between neighborhood park and community park? So most of the time in a city, your size, in the Midwest, is around 12 acres per thousand. You're around 6 right now. Of that 12 acres per thousand, usually it's about 2.5 to 3 acres is for neighborhood parks. And typically what happens in communities as they grow now is that developers work with the staff, with the city staff, in actually providing those neighborhood parks through some kind of a land dedication ordinance or some kind of impact fee. They either can put them in as an HOA or they basically put them in and the city agrees to maintain them. That's typically how it works today.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I know we have some of those, and the conversation, of course, is fun. You know, how we maintain it and get that most impact and stuff. And as demographics change and shift, you have that moving of younger families, older families, all of that. So that's helpful. I appreciate you.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Mr. Mayor, I was intrigued by some of your charts relative to comparing Independence to National Recreation and Park Association, and the Midwest median piece of that. I'm just wondering, does it make any sense at all, or would it make any sense to compare Independence to similar communities of, similar demographics, similar, financial,
We did. We tried to get people to respond to us,
Okay.
but we didn't get responses back. The staff, Morris and his team, gave us the list of people they felt would best represent you. And I recognize that at least some of it's different, population is similar, but we had a lot of local agencies, and I can't tell you how many times we called them and begged them for information, but we just didn't get it.
Okay.
But that's why we went to the national average, because NRPA is made up of 12,000 or more agencies across the United States, and people who fill out the NRPA survey on an annual basis is around 4,000 to 5,000. So you're getting about 40% or 30% of the agencies that are responding to NRPA, so that's why we used it.
I see. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right, thank you. Excellent information. I really, really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
And Mr. City Manager, Housing Authority overview, we're going to pass on that if I'm correct.
Yes, sir. Need to slide that one more time, so we'll look forward to having that in October.
Okay, very, very good. And Madam City Clerk, boards and commissions report.
A recommendation has been made to appoint Alan Voss to the Independence Arts Council. A recommendation has been made to appoint Joseph Curie to the Independence Advisory Board of Health. A recommendation has been made to reappoint Darla Eames and Tim O'Neill to the Tree Commission. A recommendation has been made to reappoint Trevor Tilton to the Independence Square Advisory Board. A recommendation has been made to appoint Aaron Boatwright to the Personnel Board, and a recommendation has been made to appoint Patrick Kuhn to the Japanese Sister City Committee. Staff requests direction to add resolutions to the next regular meeting, appointing these individuals to those boards.
Thank you. Any questions or any thoughts? Okay. Anything else, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir, I don't believe so this evening.
Okay. You looked deep in thoughts. I don't know if you had anything
I was
else.
making
but-
sure, double checking the list, but
All
we're
right.
in good shape.
Very good. With that being said, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.